we're going to talk today about The Four Agreements, which is a book that we've read. And this is, Ashley's got a copy of it right here. This is going to be a series of videos that we want to do of things that have like helped us along the way so far and continue to help us. And so some of them are going to be book reviews like this one. And we picked this one intentionally to start with because it's really important.
It is. We have family meetings around this book now, like a little family book club. So it's kind of dorky, I guess, a little bit, but it's also very exciting. The book nerd in me, my small inner child, loves the fact that my kids are reading this book and we're reading it together. And it's one of those books that you can keep going back to.
Right.
Definitely, until you've memorized these bad boys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll talk a little bit about the book, and then, like I said, then we'll talk about how it meant and what's meant to us and why it's important to us. So to start off, there's an opening chapter to the book before you actually get to the Four Agreements that introduces everything. And I want to take real quick, 3 minutes or so to talk about the three topics from that opening. And one of the things I really love is he talks about the process of us growing up is domestication, which I think is really interesting because you think of domesticated animals. And he even says that in the book that we are domesticated like animals. We are told what is good and rewarded for it. Mm-hmm. And then we're told what is bad and punished for that.
Right.
And so a lot of the things that we grow up with, a lot of the things that we've done, we do out of either anticipating a reward, and we've talked about the power of habit and anticipation and things like that in some of our videos, or avoiding punishment. Not because we really want to do something. I think, I'm going to say that I think a lot of people like speed limit. I think a lot of people follow the speed limit because they don't want to get a ticket, not because they either A, feel unsafe driving, or B, want to actually go that slow.
Yeah.
Or that fast, whatever you want to say. But they do it out of fear of punishment. And so we're kind of conditioned that way with the domestication. And so what that does is that instills a lot of habits and habits and values in us that we get only from being raised in the culture that we're raised in. And each culture is different. So I talked a little bit about with the kids. We've talked about a child raised in an American culture, in a typical American culture, let's put it that way, would like cheeseburgers. Let's just put that. They kids like cheeseburgers, sure, right?
Delicious.
All right, cheeseburgers are delicious. But yet, if we looked at something like octopus, most kids would probably turn their nose up at octopus. But if you go to a culture that, like Japan, that their kids are raised on that, they might be the other way around. They might turn their nose up at a cheeseburger and say, "Ooh, that's gross." But octopus is something that they eat, fairly often.
Right.
So those type of things, we all are conditioned through our domestication.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. And I think what that leads to is, that leads us to making what he calls agreements with ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm going to take these a little bit out of order. I know we got a little bit of notes going here. I'm going to take these a little bit out of order because I think this leads better. We make these agreements with ourselves. And what the agreements are is what we believe. So we make agreements that we believe, so for example, I could use a really good example with religion. I was raised Catholic. No longer Catholic, but I was raised Catholic. And so a lot of the traditions and things that I've told you about where you were not raised Catholic, you're like, that's kind of weird. I don't get that. Why do you believe that? Right. And when I was growing up in those things were not weird at all because it was, agreements that I made with myself that my parents instilled in me. Same with sports teams. A lot of us root for the sports teams we root in because our parents did.
Right.
So those are really simple examples. Where it gets kind of dark is when you think about things that you were told by other people that you make agreements. You're the good one. You're the bad one. You're the smart one. You're the dumb one. Mm-hmm. Those are things that people put on us, and we take those in if we agree with them, and we make those agreements, and we believe those things.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important to remember because we don't often know who we are. And I think that's the purpose of this book is to really find out who you really are because you've been told all your life by other people what you are. And
yeah, I just want to interject for a second.
Please.
I was just talking to some girlfriends this morning on a walk, and I was talking about being shy, and which is
just hilarious to me.
Funny when I told you that, you were like, I don't think you're shy. But I remember teachers always saying that to me, and writing it on my report card, like painfully shy. And so I think I adopted that as an agreement, like, I'm shy, just because I was more quiet and not, that doesn't necessarily make you shy. So I think that's something that I had a breakthrough this morning with it. It's kind of funny, 42 years old, figuring out I'm not shy. But I was told that.
I had a similar experience with a guidance counselor.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, so a guidance counselor, when in high school, told me that I should not be an engineer. That I should not go into engineering. Mathematics wasn't my strong point, and that I should stick to the biological sciences or the software sciences. And that made my decision. I was going to be a doctor, and so I believed that I made that agreement with myself. I'm not good at math. Now, even though I was in honors math, I still got C's, B's and C's in honors math. But I went to college and in pre-med, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. And I ended up having to change majors. And what did I change majors to? But computer science, because software engineering. And I ended up getting straight, because I made this agreement with myself that, hey, I can do this. Right. I ended up getting straight A's in calculus in college, have a minor in mathematics, have an engineering degree.
Right.
So, those are all agreements that we make with ourselves. And I think that that's something to keep in mind as we talk about these other agreements that we need to replace those old ones with.
Yeah.
And so the last thing from the beginning that I thought was really cool is talking about understanding that your reality is yours and yours alone. And this perception that you have of yourself is completely different than the perception that other people have of you, and vice versa.
Like the whole shy thing.
Right, the whole shy thing.
Because my friends are like, you're not shy.
Right. She told me that she was shy in high school. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Because that's not the picture I have of Ashley is this big personality, funny, very outgoing.
Funny.
But yeah,
not a big personality.
It's really funny because that's so in a supplementary piece of material that you can find on YouTube about this. He gives the example of going into a movie theater, and the movie that you're going to see is the story of you. And I love this. And so you go in and you sit down and it's your life, and you are the main character in the story. And in fact, you're the everything is shot from your eyes. Yeah. And everything looks familiar. All the people look familiar. All the places look familiar. And so then you decide, okay, well, this is interesting. I'm going to go see what else is in this theater. And you go to the next theater. And you're sitting in the theater, and for a little bit, you recognize the names. And then you realize eventually that this is the story of your mother. And so eventually you come along, right, in the story of your mother. And you're like, that's not... What? No, that's wrong. That's not who I am. That's different. That's not me. Well, that's your mother's view of you. And it's not yours. And it's completely different how you view yourself. And if you can keep going down these movie theaters, you're going to constantly see everybody changes. The view of your mom in her movie is different than the view of your mom in your movie. Right. And in your dad's movie, and vice versa. So all of that is really interesting to think about, that you make your own reality. Now, within reason, obviously, but I think that you do. I don't want to get in trouble for saying that, but you do in a way. You make your own reality. Your perception of things is your reality.
Well, there's so many books, self-help gurus, everybody that talks about like thinking and then becoming.
Right.
Like think it first.
Think and Grow Rich is a very famous
book.
Yeah.
So that just makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your perception of yourself, if you see yourself as a total loser, you probably just will be. And it's the same, we've talked about this with working out, with the weight loss, with eating right or whatever. If you just say, oh, I'm just a big fat slob, I'm just going to go eat junk all day long, then that's what you're going to be.
That's what you'll become.
garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely.
What you talk about. So, I mean, everything in this book will not surprise you at all. But, like, it's just kind of the way that he puts it together.
Yes.
That I loved very much.
The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. And so I'm going to be honest, when I first, Ashley sent me the audiobook of this, the opening, the parts that I talked about were not there. It just started with the first agreement. And he's talking in this book about magic and black magic. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is a little...
Yeah, you thought it was weird.
My science brain is going, But no, but he goes on to further explain everything. And so... being impeccable with your word, he starts off talking about what the word is. And the word is your power. Everything that you say, everything that you think, all of those things are very powerful. You have the power to literally tear somebody down with just your speech. You know, it's the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's complete hogwash. Because we all know that words can destroy a person. Words can, he uses, Hitler in the book as an example of using words. Words incited genocide. Words, nothing else. And so words are very powerful, and they're very powerful magic.
They work the other way as well.
And they work the other way too. Right. Words can prop somebody up and make them better. And,
Well, he calls it magic.
Yes.
I don't necessarily agree with that word. I understand the meaning behind it. Of course, anybody who's ever watched or read Harry Potter, Dumbledore's very famous line about that words are, in his not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic. And I understand what that means, so I just don't want anybody to get caught up on the word magic. It's a very spiritual book.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean, like, if you're a Christian or something, that you can't take away from this. Because words are so important. Just think of, like, a time somebody said something mean to you. A lot of people, we'll get into the second agreement why you shouldn't do that, but you'll remember it and you'll adopt it, like we said, as an agreement in your mind. Like if somebody tells you you're ugly or stupid or fat or whatever, and you'll start to adopt those things.
Think of how magical language is in and of itself. If I talk about a pink giraffe, right now, if you're watching this video, you're thinking about a pink giraffe.
I just did.
Okay, exactly. That doesn't exist anywhere, but I was able to put that thought and that image in your mind just by my words.
Right.
That is magic in a way.
It is.
And so, and I understand what you're going. Yeah.
It's not like voodoo. It's not.
Right. But that's magical in and of itself, that you can create these things with words. So that's why words are important. The second part of that is being impeccable. And impeccable comes from a Latin root, and the Latin root means sin. And peccatus, I think it is. I'll have to look that up.
Know.
I'll put it on the screen.
Former Catholic schoolboy.
I know. I took Latin in high school. I don't remember. But it means sin. And so if you put im in front of it, then it means without. So it's without sin.
Right.
And, I was always taught growing up, Catholic, as I said, that sin is something you do against other people. And really, when you look at the root of what sin means, it's something that you do against yourself. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like, right? Yeah, exactly. Because, and it's so true, because if you say something bad about someone else, or if you spread lies, that's harming yourself.
That's you doing.
Yes.
You're the one that you're the problem.
Right. And if you take somebody else's words that they said to you and you internalize them, then that is sin as well. You are the poison. And not the good words, the bad words. Like if somebody says that you're ugly and you take that, you go, you know what? I am ugly. That's a sin, because you have now absorbed that poison and brought it into yourself. So really being impeccable with your word means, being able to not only be kind and generous about and honest what you say outwardly, but more importantly, what you say to yourself.
Yes.
And because when you are impeccable with your word to yourself, whatever anybody else says doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. And
you won't be that if you're basically to put it in a very simple term, like if you're nice to yourself, you're going to be nice to other people.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You're going to treat people the way that you're treating yourself.
And that leads you into the second agreement.
That's which is mine. So we decided to pick the agreements that we need the most work on. So the second agreement is to not take anything personally. And I have to say that when I actually listened to the book before I read it, and I'm listening to the first one, I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with that, absolutely, And then he gets to the second one and he says, don't take anything personally. And I literally laughed out loud because I was like, I needed to hear that today. It was a rough day that I was having, and I needed to hear that. Don't take anything personally. And I've taken this and really worked it into many of my relationships now. It's kind of an amazing thing. And he even says in the book and the audio version of it as well, like, it's not as if you're going to be perfect at doing all this stuff, so don't feel like you have to be. But it's just that very thought that's there that, like, okay, so I had a conversation with someone in my life who I don't like that much, and he was giving me some poison, and I was like, I got mad for a second, and then I was like, no. I even kind of stepped back a little bit and said, no, I'm not going to take this personally. Because really what the author goes into saying is, when you take things personally, you make everything about yourself. And we live in this society of, like, just so many self-centered people who just, everything is all about them. And it's like, not everything is about you. If someone with that first agreement is not being impeccable with their word, that's on them. You can't take that personally. And he even goes to the point of saying, like, even if someone were like shoot you in the face or something, you shouldn't take it personally, which is pretty mind-blowing for most people to be like, oh, I would definitely take that personally, but you can't, because that you're not responsible for anybody else's actions. And, like, that is a very freeing thing.
Yes.
Especially for someone like myself who's a little bit of a control freak. So to be able to be like, just not have the responsibility of someone else's, actions. It's kind of emotional. I'm not going to cry, I promise. But it was a very powerful thing to hear. Like, someone could say whatever they want to you, and unless you make that agreement with yourself, like that you agree with them, that's what it is. No one can hurt you. There's actually a famous quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, who said that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And that's really what this agreement is. You can't take it personally. Don't take it personally. I actually wrote that down. He says in the book to write it down somewhere and put it on your fridge. It's in our laundry room on our big board. Don't take anything personally.
What about things that you say to yourself?
Oh, yeah. That was the best part. I was like, I just keep blowing my mind. That you can't take what you say to yourself personally either. And you're not supposed to even take good things personally. Because he's like, you're wonderful. Essentially saying, like, you don't need to get your self-worth from other people.
Right.
That really has to come from within, and it starts with the first agreement, which I wanted to mention that he does say the first agreement is the most important, and the other three, like, sort of flow from it.
Flow from it.
But to me, the second agreement of not taking things personally is just like, oh my gosh. And you really have to be honest with yourself and say, you know what? I do that. I need to stop.
Yes, everybody does.
You don't do it as much as
No, but I do. But I do, because I did take. So, for example, going back to the first agreement, I did take what my guidance counselor said. I took that personally.
Yeah.
I took that in and made that my own. And there are other things that have happened, and I don't need to share this here, but there's other things that have happened in my life that are really stupid. And had I not taken them personally and taken them in, and made that agreement with myself, things would have been way different for me.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful with that, because it is very freeing.
Isn't it? I can't express enough how much I love that one, to not take things personally. And that for me, when we're doing the book club, this is our book club book with our kids, and I'm like, who thinks this one's the hardest? Because this one's mine, So it's really nice to be able to do that. So I think that's good for the second agreement. Yeah. So I have the third agreement as well, which is to not make assumptions. And this one is tricky. But again, you can sort of see how it flows from the first two of, being impeccable with your word, don't take it personally, and if you do those two things, then I think you'll stop assuming things, actually.
Sure.
He talks about asking questions instead of assuming. And he gives a really great example, and I want to give this for any husband and wife team out there. I don't know how many girlfriends I have had over the years that have said, well, he should just know. Like, that your husband should just know something. They don't know nothing, okay? They don't. So you cannot assume that they do. And you and I have been together for a long time, and I'll do it sometimes. I'll be like, he should just know that I don't feel good, and he should do this for me. They don't. And
nobody does.
But I'll say, like, women, I think, are a little better at anticipating needs than men. That's just one of our differences. And that's okay. But we should not assume that our husband's going to be like our girlfriend. And be like, oh, what do you need? Because, you got your own stuff going on. But right. I'm just saying that was a big one. I laughed.
The movie theater.
Yeah. I laughed out loud for that one. Because he talks about a husband and wife, remember? That, and you can get yourself into trouble that way with, well, you should just know that what you did hurt me.
Well, I mean, how many of you out there have had that happen where, your wife is mad at you and she literally said that to you. You should know.
I don't say that to you.
I know you don't, but I'm saying that
someone else
has. And, I think that everybody out there has had that happen to them at least once with a wife or girlfriend or whatever, And
every man out there has had that happen to them, I am sure. But I just thought that was a really great example of, don't assume that anybody, because that actually goes along with being kind of self-centered and narcissistic. If you think that, everybody just knows what's going on in your life. No. People have their own movie running, their own stuff that they're worried about, and not everybody, is worried about what's going on with you. So, don't make assumptions. And I will say, just real quick, though, I was talking to you guys about this yesterday, you and the kids, that what about educated guesses? Yeah. Well, this one is tough for me because there are things that I see around in the world, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to make an assumption about that. I want to, gather all the facts first. But I'm like, what about an educated guess?
I think that, and he talks about this in the book, and I've read other books that explain this as well, is when your brain does not have all the information, it will automatically make assumptions because we can't not know. Like, as human beings, that's not one of our characteristics. Right. We have to be able to know. And so when we don't have all of the pieces, all the facts, we do put assumptions in. Yeah. And I think for me, the important takeaway from this is to know when you're making an assumption. Okay, and to maybe do it without judgment. Correct. And then to ask questions to clear up that assumption.
Yes, to make sure.
I know we're running along, I'm a little bit long on time, but I have to talk about Three Pines because I love this so much. Yeah, it is the most perfect example of not making assumptions. And so there's a show on Amazon right now called Three Pines, and the show is it's a detective show. And the detective is a really smart guy and really experienced. And he talks about he wanted to have the words tattooed on his hand that says, "I could be wrong." And he wanted them on this part of his hand specifically because he wanted to be able to read those words every time that he wrote and every time that he shot. Yeah. And I love that because that is so true. It's like every time that we are making a very, in thinking about what a detective does, their words, going back to the first, agreement, can put somebody in jail.
Right.
And obviously, if you're, law enforcement and dealing with a gun situation, that gun can take somebody's life, and you could be wrong. Yeah. And so, not making those assumptions, could literally save someone's life. So
it's true. It's a big one. I like that one. So 2 and 3 are kind of my ones to work on, and 1 and 4 is yours. So yes. Go ahead with 4.
And so the last one is really simple. It's something that you've probably been told your entire life, is do your best. And it sounds really simple, but it's not, because I think that the thing that you have to realize about your best is that your best isn't always the same. If you have been working for 16 hours, that 15th hour that you're working is not going to be as good as your first hour when you were wide awake and happy. Same with you when you're sad or you're sick or whatever it is. My best at baking a cake and decorating it is not as good as your best.
Yeah, that's true.
We always tell the kids that too. And when some of them are in athletics, and there's always going to be somebody bigger, stronger, faster than you are. That's okay. Do your best. Work on your strengths. Your best. Your personal best. And if you always do that, then you're always improving, and you're always going to be, the other 3 agreements are going to come easy, because you always are doing your best, regardless of what that is. But it's forgiving yourself when your best is not, as good as you want it to be.
Well, that's being impeccable with your word, really.
There you go. See how they all
they
all intertwine. So the last one's pretty short, but I think that is, I think it's the thing, the takeaway from that is, again, just realizing that your best isn't always the same, and that's okay. And just as long as you recognize that. And so I think that for me, this book was really, it was transformational in a way. I really do believe that. I mean, I think
you
that
do believe.
I do believe. I do believe. I need to stop saying I do believe. But no, I think that the thing that blew me away the most is he talks about, I don't remember, because I've listened to so many different things now. I don't remember if it was in the book or if it was just the training.
Okay.
But he talks about, to implement this in your life, that you have to go back and look at everything that you believe and question all of it. And, what do I believe? And is that the truth? Or is that an agreement that I made based on something else? And was that?
Based on an assumption.
Based on an assumption. Yeah, exactly. And so literally sitting down and doing that it's a very tough exercise. And I've tried a couple times to do this. And, reading another book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they talk about living a principled life and writing this personal mission statement and really sitting down and deciding, based on my life, what do I believe? What are my principles? And it really ties into this, because it's, once you have those principles down, then you don't have to make assumptions. You will be impeccable with your word. You're going to do your best because you know what that is. You've defined that. So what about you? What did you?
Well, I love that you just said that. I think that's an important thing to do, and something we haven't done yet. The personal mission statement, right? Of writing down exactly that. What do you believe? All of these books, though, I would say, like any amazing book that you've ever heard of, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, this book,
Psychocybernetics,
of course. They are, when I read them, I'm just speaking for myself, like I'm just always like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and something I need to remember and follow. And while the 4th one we didn't spend that much time on, the 4th agreement, I think it's really important to remember that it is okay. There's some days where you won't be as better as you were the day before, that best, but that's okay, because that's your best for that day, as long as you're doing your best for that day. But yeah, I love this book, and I hope, I'm talking to my girlfriends about it and hoping that they'll read it. And thank you, Jamie, for sending it to me sending it to me in the first place, because it has been really, really powerful. And I love that it's called A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. And that's just a really, I think, something really important for everyone. But yeah, I think that's all I got.
So too. So please definitely go out and read this book.
Read it, yeah.
You can find it on, if you really want to just try it out first, try it on, find it on YouTube. There is I'll put the link. I don't know if I'll put the link to the audiobook because I think there's probably some copyright things there. But you can find the audiobook, but I will put the link to the supplementary material that I talk about. That comes directly from their website.
Good.
And so it is theirs, and they publish that for free. But you can listen to that. You don't have to read the book to listen to that, but they kind of go together and they help. They really kind of clarify each other. So
I could keep talking about
I could too. We could talk forever about this.
We said we were going to limit ourselves.
So yeah. That's it. All right. Well, we'll talk to you at our weekly update, and our next weekly update that we will actually, and again, this is not going to stay evergreen here at this part, but we will pick the next topic from a hat. That's what we're going to. Topics from a hat. So, all right. Talk to you later.